Hello internet friends, after a week or two of playing Star Wars Squadrons and getting my butt kicked more times than I care to remember, I'm finally getting the hang of things. I feel I'm not amazing at the game, but I can at least survive for a while in battles, shoot down the enemy somewhat reliably. This being the case, I thought I'd compile a survival guide starting with the A-Wing and TIE-Interceptor. This is the ship that I generally do the best with, although when you first start every ship is difficult. It's a very unforgiving game, especially in PvP, but these tips will be valid beyond the Interceptor. They're just a little bit more Interceptor specific than other ships. Okay, my first survival tip is fly around with full power to engines whenever you can. In some Star Wars shooters I've played, there's not much difference when you set full power to engines. Maybe you go a bit faster, turn a bit quicker, but the difference is negligible. In Squadrons, the difference is absolutely massive. You fly much faster with full power to engines, you turn much quicker, and you also have access to the important ability to boost. Your boost meter won't charge unless you have engines at full power, and by extension, the drift technique. If you don't know what drifting is, check my video in the top right where I talk about how to do it. It's a really important technique in the game. Full power to engines allows you to close the gap with enemies quicker, turn to get behind them in faster circles, lose a tail either by boosting or drifting, and also shake missiles without the need for countermeasures by jinking left and right at half throttle. It's something talked about in the story missions. It's a really good way to shake missiles when you're out of countermeasures. Half throttle but full engines, you can jink around. You simply can't do some of these things without full power to engines. So my advice would be engines full wherever possible. That being said, my second tip is to switch quickly to another power setting as soon as the situation calls for it. Ideally before. It's like a game of tennis. This was what I was taught when I was learning tennis. It's not about reacting to the ball. It's about anticipating where the ball is going to go, where your opponent's going to hit it, and start moving before that happens. The same is true in Squadrons, it seems to me. Once you're behind the enemy and in a position to fire, you need to have shunted power to weapons in anticipation of that. So when you do, you're shooting lasers that are overcharged and doing more damage. This takes a couple of seconds to happen, so anticipating being in position is important. I don't always manage it, but it's always on my mind to do that. Time to kill against tougher opponents like TIE bombers and Y-wings in particular. They can take quite a long time to take down, so shooting with overcharged weapons helps hugely. Try to do it wherever possible, since the longer you're tailing someone, chipping away at them, the more opportunity another player has to get behind you. I've got this sense now that if I'm tailing someone for more than 10 to 15 seconds, if I haven't killed them, then I'm going to die. Not because they'll turn around and shoot me, but because one of their teammates is going to pick me off eventually. Because of this, time to kill is very important, as I say. So anticipating being in position, then shunt power to weapons, then fire with overcharged lasers to kill the enemy as quickly as possible, because you don't want to be tailing them for ages and ages. Alright, let's get on to the next one. Tip 3, don't forget your shields. Only relevant for the A-Wing, of course, and although shields are the final priority for me, I always try to overcharge them if I've got time to do so. At the start of the match, for instance, there's a window of time before you close with the enemy to overcharge, and it's a good idea to do it whenever there's a lull in the fighting. Also, don't forget your shield facing. Although interceptors are the weakest ships in terms of hit points, adjusting shields to face forward when playing chicken with an enemy or facing them to the rear when you're being tailed can buy you precious extra seconds to maneuver or get a few extra shots in. As I say, this is interceptor specific, so if you're in the U-Wing, for instance, I wouldn't take this advice. Shields become very important when you're a more tanky ship, and if you're doing the campaign on Ace, I've discovered the essentialness of shields, so don't kind of deprioritize them because I've put them last as a priority here for the Intercept. It just seems like the engines and the weapons make more of a difference, but shields can be important for the Interceptor and for other ships. Don't wait to shoot. This is something I really struggle with, since I'm always waiting for a clear shot. What I've learned with Squadrons is that firing speculatively and at a long range often works. The times when you unload a full clip on an enemy and kill them outright seem few and far between. The enemy has to be kind of sitting there like a sitting duck with you. No one's pursuing you. You can just sit there and shoot them. It doesn't happen very often. The kills that happen the most often seem to be when you're spraying in the general direction and catch them with what seem like glancing blows. You have lots of weapon energy to play with, especially if you're shunting power. So if there's a chance you might hit, then shoot. Hitting the enemy involves many techniques like leading the target, knowing when to press the attack and when to peel off, slowing down, speeding up. Keep them in your sights, but in all these situations the enemy will be bobbing and weaving likely, more likely than not, and you won't hit them if you're not shooting. You also have good range with the default lasers for most fighters, 100 meters I believe it is, and often these are very effective from long range. The enemy is harder to hit, but you'll often score a couple of shots that might be enough to finish off a player. If they're not moving around, you can kill them quickly at long range as well. So fire speculatively. Just don't drain your weapon battery entirely. And again, don't blame me. It's still important to have some power left for when the enemy player stops dead in an effort to confuse you. I've hardly ever seen this work, by the way. It worked in Top Gun for Maverick once 20 years ago, but rarely happens in Squadrons. Don't stop, full stop, and expect the enemy to shoot over you. Most people will react and just sit behind you shooting you in the ass. My final tip is to relax. Squadrons is such a twitchy, hectic game that I often find myself gripping the controls like they're the last bag of Pringles in the supermarket. Hunch forward, swaying this way and that in an attempt to coax more speed out of my fighter. Guess what? I've learned this doesn't help at all. You will turn just as fast, shoot just as accurately, make the same or better decisions when you're relaxed. If you've ever seen a real pilot flying a ship, you'll notice they're so chill. They don't show very much emotion at all. They're incredibly just relaxed in that environment. This works best for me, and I hope it would work for you as well. The desire to win is obviously a great motivator, but I've often found that when I play angry or tense, I do far worse than when I'm playing just having fun and I'm relaxed. If you do well, then great. If you don't, you did your best. Just remember, unless you're a professional esports player, then it doesn't matter whether you win or lose in a video game at all. All that matters is you're having fun. Anyway, I hope these survival tips help you. They're the things that make the biggest difference to me, and I hoped by sharing them I could smooth the initial learning curve for any new players out there. I hope that is the case. I'm going to let the video play out because there's an example of a Maverick, a Top Gun guy, coming up, which is quite good. But thank you for watching. There's more videos on the end card. If you get time, comment and leave your tips down below, and I'll see you next time.
This is it, Maverick! I'm going to hit the brakes, he'll fly right by. Fly him up!
Let's get some fire on that.
Fire on my target.
They're the best the Empire has. This war won't last much longer. Great work, Vanguard.